Hey, Que Pasa Calexico? Welcome back to the podcast. Like always, before we begin, I want to thank a couple of people. I want to thank my anchor sponsors. I want to thank Sergio. Thank you for sponsoring the podcast. I also want to thank David Gastelum. If you're thinking of buying or selling a home in the Imperial or San Diego counties, make sure you contact David. His phone number is 760-235-9576. He's not only a realtor, but an investor with over 20 years of experience. I also want to thank everybody out there in the front lines that are working really hard to keep us safe and keep our lives, as normal as possible. I want to thank everybody at our hospitals who are, working really hard to, keep us safe and healthy. I know that we've made national news a couple of times these last couple of months. So please, people, take this serious. It's a serious disease and it's impacting the whole valley, especially the valley. But yeah, today we have two guests. We have Luis Flores and Miguel Hernandez. They're part of two coalitions and committee that are helping our local community. Thank you guys for being here today.
Thanks for the invite.
Who wants to go first? Who wants to talk? Give us a little bit of an intro to their coalition or committee.
Go for it, Luis.
All right. So I'm Luis Flores from Calexico. So the organization that I'm a member of is the Imperial Valley Equity and Justice Coalition. We're a pretty new organization of new and old friends from the Valley. We emerged kind of in early June around a petition over the direction that the Board of Supervisors was going at the time, but we've sort of become a group that's more broadly advocating for community participation, for health equity, for justice in general.
Yeah.
Hi, so I'm Miguel Hernandez. I'm with Comite Civico del Valle. We're a local nonprofit. We're actually based in Raleigh, but we work in regional issues. We work in the Imperial Valley, obviously, and across the San Sea region, all the way to Coachella. And also we have different efforts across the state with different partners. A part of, again, Comite Civico del Valle, that I'm the communications coordinator. And I'm also an advocate for, social justice, environmental justice, and health equity. And I'm also part of the coalition with Luis.
Can you tell me a little bit about I guess you can call it your motto or your slogan, inform people, build healthier communities. Can you elaborate a little bit in terms of that?
Yeah, definitely. Well, our organization was founded by farm workers back in 1987, and that has been the motto ever since. There was some inequalities with justice and primarily education, which this issue started emerging with farm workers' families that, perhaps their kids, their children weren't given the same opportunities at school. So they started, finding about the kids being placed on special ed classes just because they didn't speak the language, which is two different things, two different issues. And that's how it all started. And the motto for informed communities, build healthier communities. It's a motto that's throughout our programs, throughout our efforts. We believe that when the knowledge is within the community, within our people, that's what we can make a true and strong change with our community. We want to make sure that everyone is well aware what current situations are, impacts on their health, impacts on their social economic level, all the issues that play a role in their quality of life. So the more the community knows, the better and well informed they are, the better informed decisions they will make.
Cool. And in terms of your coalition, you guys say you're advocates for community involvement empowerment, social, environmental justice, and health equity. Can you elaborate a little bit about what your goals are in terms of your coalition?
Yeah. So, I think the primary thing that I think makes us, or that sort of animates what we're doing, is the community empowerment part. That we think that, and this comes out of sort of the moment that we emerged out over a disagreement of priorities with the county in early June. We got a sense that there was a lot of frustration among people expressed in these many different ways on social media. So we had a sense that there was this kind of this sentiment among the community, and we wanted to find ways of sort of empowering people to sort of feel like they can express those sentiments to elected officials whose job it is to represent them. And so we started off with the petition, but what emerged after that was a significant list of folks that we communicate with to try to inform, to try to provide avenues for becoming more informed, but also participating in sort of in civic engagement. And the sort of the social justice and health equity parts also sort of come out of COVID, but I think along with the Comite, sort of we see a lot of the reasons for why it's so bad here as connected to underlying problems that have been around since I was growing up in Calexico, problems of pollution, of environmental pollution, poor air quality, labor conditions, low pay, all these sorts of things that are questions of injustice and disparities that we think COVID sort of highlighted very sharply, but will remain to be addressed, when COVID passes.
Going back to that petition, what were some of the issues that you guys were seeing in terms of the decisions the county was making, and how has it changed from when you guys made that petition to now?
Yeah, so the petition was very kind of a little very narrow in what it was asking. So we were responding to a June 3rd appeal by the Board of Supervisors to have the entire state move ahead to stage 2B of reopening. This would have meant a transition from the county by county way that sort of reopening was happening and is still happening. Our metrics are sort of way above they were then, and they remain now way sort of higher than what the state will require us to move ahead. So we interpret this to be an asking for an exemption, right? For us to sort of be able to move ahead with lower metrics and accepting this sort of that we were already number one in the state in terms of COVID infections and deaths. So we just wanted the governor to know that a lot of people disagreed with this, that we did not think this was something we could get used to, and this was not, and that there were other things that the county could do, right? So our principal disagreement was a disagreement of priorities, that in the moment of crisis, rather than asking for an exemption or for some saying that we're unique, so we need to have different metrics applied to us, we were asking for that to be the basis for asking for more resources, right? Like that it's so bad is why we need more support from the state and not to be allowed to pass ahead. And things have changed a bit, right? So the governor, we think, heard us out. We got a lot of media attention in the time after that. We also got a lot of people to sign on, and we got over 600 testimonies from people who not only signed on to a petition, but shared what reopening ahead of meeting metrics would mean for them and their loved ones. And we sent all of this to the governor, and we think that it showed that there was local support for sort of a public health informed sort of reclosing, and that we hope he felt that he could sort of take the steps he did.
Going back to what the the work that El Comite has done, over the years in terms of the air quality, how do you think that, the air quality and what COVID has done and how has it impacted, people's lives in terms of, health, people who are, have bad lungs or asthma or, all these diseases that are more common here in the Valley, how does, the work that you guys are doing with, the air quality, how does this, go hand in hand with, the impact the Valley has had with COVID?
Right. So these are no new issues for us or health concerns with our community. There's a high prevalence of asthma, especially on young children. And there's historically we have really bad air quality. We also have really bad water quality. We have the New River. We have the canals for the agriculture. There's different things, different sources of pollution. There's different impacts that play a role, especially on the health of our community. And these are just these are issues or concerns that Comite has been working, since early days. Like I said before, the Comite Civico started with farm workers addressing, labor rights, addressing issues with education, and then eventually it also adopted the environmental justice movement, and addressing all these concerns that have been on our region since I can recall. Since I lived in Mexicali, lived in Calexico, lived in El Centro, so I now live in Probably. So all these issues that have long existed in our region or in our communities, that perhaps that portion is not new, and perhaps it's also issues or cumulative issues that just make us more susceptible to contracting the COVID-19, and just makes it all these issues piling up, and now we have the COVID that hit us about 4 months ago, and it definitely makes things a lot worse for our communities. We had already been suffering of all those issues. We have cardiac conditions, high incidence of asthma. We have all kinds of cancers. That portion of the community in Calexico that lived adjacent to the New River, there is a high prevalence of cancer on that particular area. And COVID-19 just another burden on our community, and that's where our work and the coalition's work is to make those voices be heard. It's an issue, not just an economic issue, and it's also an issue with health. It's also an issue with social justice. It's what are the priorities for the local elected officials? It makes you want to think about it for a second. Like when the coalition sent this petition to the governor, trying to put a hold to that and actually push back a little bit. Wasn't the intention of listen to your community, listen to what the actual needs are. We don't need to move a step forward if we're not able to meet the standards or the required numbers in order to move ahead. Listen to your communities, and the priorities should be, what else do we need? Do we need more personal protective equipment? Do we need more ICUs? What is it that we truly needed? And use that argument not to move ahead with the economy, but to move ahead with asking and pulling those resources that are really needed in our community. And not just for COVID, all these other issues that I've just explained had always been, lacking on medical personnel, lacking on medicine, lacking on everything. There's, for our community, a border community, most of us, even I do, go to Mexicali and seek for medical treatment. There's a high percentage, even the county offers health insurance that would, make it a little bit more cheaper for you to go to Mexicali and get your medications and be seen by a doctor over there than actually going over here. I guess that's part of being a border town. And there's always a lack of resources, a lack of proper infrastructure at the hospitals, staffing at the hospitals. There's all these different things that play a role And that's where our ask came to the county and came to the governor, to, take a minute and really think about what should be the priority, what should really be the next step. Not just, there has been definitely a big impact on the local economy, but more so, there's a bigger impact on our community's health. It's just our community is making one hit after another hit, and there's other things that perhaps are not are more important to our community residents. There's a higher priority as a community member, as an individual. There might be a higher priority to put food on your table, to actually have a job and go out there and work, and probably expose yourself to contracting the COVID. But you have to be there for your family. You have to provide, and that's how our community is. That's the situations we're faced, and that should be the focus point for our local elected officials, and also the community. Be well aware of what our current situation is, the lack of everything that we have here, and that it's upon us and upon the local leadership that we cannot do this together. There has to come from every side, It's for us to be resilient, for us to come together and think about better strategies, think about how we keep our community safe, how we keep our family safe without exposing ourselves as much. It takes definitely a lot of thinking, a lot of strategizing to make the proper next step, and not just calling it just an economic issue. There's all these kinds of issues that this pandemic has brought to the community.
Yeah. Going back to, you mentioned the New River. The state finally allocated $28 million to, the New River. Do you think that's a good start, or,
Yeah, this is a long overdue issue, as many others, but this is talking particularly about the New River and also the Salton Sea that eventually play a role together. But for the New River, as I mentioned before, there's a community that lives adjacent to the New River, and the whole community in Calexico that has been affected by the New River. I personally have family members that used to work at the Oyo, with the outlets where the New River is. There used to be Avance. I don't know if you guys recall that, but there used to be Avance there. And I have family members that died of cancer that used to work at Avance, and there hasn't been a really, tied back to the actual source of the New River. But, there's a reason, or that's, a high chance that perhaps is the main reason of those that were affected by it, and those that live, again, close to the New River. And now there's the new port of entry on top of the New River. We'll see how that goes. Hopefully, there's safety measures being taken by the agents there, the officers. So, it's that issue with the New River for Comite Civico. We've been long advocates for that. On the early 2000s, I know Comite was really involved with the community. The community got together, with the Regional Water Quality Control Board, addressing this issue, the water quality at the New River, all the raw sewage coming from Mexicali, and then all those efforts that had happened before this actual allocation of funds, this 28 million that recently got approved by the state. There's water treatment plants in Mexicali, there's Las Arenitas, there's other measures that Mexicali has taken proactively, or I would say like now they do have this other measures to, take care of or reusing their water before it goes into the New River. So it's not as bad as it should be. But with that, also the inflows are less, and it's just a sum of chemicals and raw sewage. And on the U.S. side, there is also the agricultural runoff and everything that gets dumped into the New River. So it is definitely a great next step for the New River with this 28 million. But this is a really long fight that has been fought by the community, been fought by local organizations. City of Calexico most recently has been a little bit more active on this effort, where we're able to, bring IID, bring organizations, bring community, and sort of, push forward in the same direction instead of, battling with each other, who's going to be accountable for what or anything. We came to a consensus that what our goal is, and that we need to stick together with it and move forward with it. And I think that's how this 28 million were able to be successfully taken or signed by the governor to implement this the New River Improvement Project. So I think it's a great next step. What is it what else do we need to do? What else who do we bring together, or who else do we needs to be at the table to actually get those boots on the ground, to actually start get those project implemented, the actual contracting and all that stuff. That should be our mindset now. Like, we have these funds, boom, let's put them to work.
Yeah. So as of right now, there's no plan on how those 28 are going to be spent, or is there already like an idea?
Yes, there is. Again, it's the New River Improvement Project, and that has everything. The actual. I believe there's also even like a map and a render and how it would potentially look, this project. If I recall properly, it's about a mile and a half from the border up north of Calexico, that they're gonna pretty much encase the New River and create like a park, sort of like community amenities on top of the New River. And there is already a plan for that. So, and that's how this 28 million came about, or got approved, because there was already a project done. There was, this is how much we need, and this is what we're gonna do with it. So,
okay. So, like, do you think it took this long because of bureaucracy, or just like people weren't taking the lead to, come up with something?
Yeah, well, there's different layers of not just bureaucracy, but also there is like the CEQA and NEPA processes, which are, there's sort of requirements and documentation and environmental analysis that has to be taken care of. And that takes resources, that takes time for people to go and inspect the area and make it a sort of a feasible project for this to happen. So it like I said, it's long overdue, but now it's getting somewhere. Now it has the funds to be implemented, and rightfully so. I think our community, it's about time that justice is served to our community.
Yeah. Luis, going forward with, once we're hopefully past with COVID and all this, what are some of the goals for your coalition?
So we haven't quite, we have a few new initiatives that we're working on right now that we still think are important to get us through COVID without the kind of economic sort of pain that I think people are experiencing. So the things we're focused on right now is we're starting to draft and do the research to help cities pass their own eviction moratoriums. So we have a high proportion of folks who work low-income jobs and folks who are losing hours and these sorts of things. When that happens, people run the risk of not being able to make their rent payments. I've been seeing the numbers, something close to 20% of people in the U.S. weren't able to pay their rent in June. This could be the start of a really sort of dramatic moment of sort of housing insecurity and of eviction. So the state of California extended this emergency declaration to September 30th, but it still requires each city to pass its own version of this. The county passed one for unincorporated areas, but cities need to pass one for the cities in order to protect people from eviction. So we're doing the research, and we're hoping to work with cities to help them protect tenants. We know that homeowners are protected already. There's no homeowner that's going to be evicted because that's through the federal law that there's protections against mortgage holders. But tenants are still sort of at risk of losing their homes. So that's the thing we're working on. We just a few hours ago we submitted a health equity resolution to the Board of Supervisors. So we put together a document, a research document that shows that what is becoming increasingly clear, which is that COVID isn't affecting everyone equally. It's not the great equalizer that people thought it was going to be. In fact, Black and brown folks are getting this infection nationally 3 times higher than white folks, and the death rate is equally unequal, right? So why is this? It's not because of culture. It's not for for these other reasons. It's for structural reasons. The kinds of jobs that minorities in the U.S. tend to have, the lack of access to healthcare, the pre-existing conditions, and also that we live in families differently, right? We live with our abuelas, and we have complex households, right? But the workplace part of that is important. When COVID started in March, Latinos more than any group in the U.S. were the least likely to have jobs that they could do from home, that they could telework, right? So Latinos are more likely to have to work in service jobs, in restaurants, in agriculture, in hotels, doing cleaning. That became a really big deal during COVID, hospitality, right? So even though Latinos were already least likely to be able to work from home, and the kinds of jobs that Latinos tend to have, and Black folks as well, are quote unquote essential jobs that mean high risk jobs, right? High risk of exposure. So what we're trying to do with this equity resolution is to say our policies for addressing COVID need to take as a starting point the fact that communities aren't affected equally. So there's a few things that means. First is that you have to find the data that allows you to find those disparities, right? We don't have good racial data in the Valley on COVID. There's 50% unknowns. We don't have any data on where the people were working when they get sick. We don't have data on socioeconomic status of people. So interventions are just happening in the dark, right? Just like where we know, like if we knew that, we know that anecdotally that folks at places like Walmart, places at the fields are getting sick, then the kinds of interventions look differently, right? So it's a long-winded answer, but one of the things we're working on now is to encourage the county to sort of pass this equity resolution that would align us with the kind of language and programming that the state is doing around health equity, that recognizes disparities as the baseline of what's going on. We think that's particularly important for the Valley, and by embracing a health equity approach, then we're looking for disparities. We're working with community groups to reach the hard to reach, to make aid and protections accessible to folks. And we're also sort of doing the kinds of things that I think need to start happening, which is enforcing workplace protections for big employers, right? So the fields, big box retailers, they need to be held accountable when they're creating a culture that doesn't encourage their workers to get tested because they're afraid about what can happen, that they don't feel like they can stay home if they're feeling sick, or that aren't closing down when there's an outbreak, or that they don't, that they don't enforce safety measures. So that's kind of the direction that we're going in.
Say we lived in this perfect world where everybody had healthcare and we could go to the doctor and stuff like that. How do you get past that culture? How as Hispanics, Mexicans, we're always like, my mom does it a lot, where she's like, oh no, I'm gonna take half of it because I feel better, so I'm gonna take half my blood pressure medication, stuff like that. Where us as Hispanics, we often say oh no, I'm not gonna go to the doctor because I feel good. Like I did it. I'm one of those people where I was like, I feel good, and lo behold, I had high blood pressure. I had what do you call it? Hypertension. So like, I feel that, a big part of the reason we're at where we're at in terms of, our health issues, high blood pressure, diabetes, is because, I mean, it is also that we're afraid that, oh no, they're going to charge us. But like, say, we get past that, we live in this perfect world and, we get free healthcare. How do you get past, these old ideology where like we don't go because we feel okay, or they're going to charge us, or they're going to, oh no, I'm going to go to the doctor and they're going to tell me I have something wrong, stuff like that. How do you get it through, the people that, it's good to go to the doctor?
So it's hard for me to engage in that thought experiment because I don't think culture is independent of the life experiences that are shaped by social injustices. So when I know my parents, my tias, like I hear you. But I think those orientations, those perspectives emerge in people that are so sort of distanced from the kinds of like institutions of education, of stability that that sort of generate these kind of survival mentalities, right? This way that you've always had to do the best with what you have.
Mm-hmm.
It also makes you pretty cynical of rightly so, of institutions, right? Of government, like, it makes you cynical that they've never been there for you. You've always had a hard life. Like, why would you trust doctors? Why would you trust these institutions that have failed you? So I don't think culture is separate from the life experiences of people. And if we had experiences where we didn't face inequities, where we had the ability to get educations or to find fulfillment in jobs that aren't, degrading, that we don't do just because we have to, that we could pursue different interests, I think people would not have the kind of understandable kind of suspicion of mainstream institutions, and wouldn't have these kind of survival habits, right? That you have to like, or else you would just be angry and sad the whole time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think if, in a world where we had inclusion, where we had equity, where we had justice, we would also have people trusting each other. We would have people trusting institutions. We would have people with all the education that that they would need to make choices that are good for them.
So do you feel that it's like the best way to tackle this would be with education, starting with younger generations, or how do we approach it?
So I think part of it is education, and by that I mean like access to to schools, right? To higher ed, without student loans, without things that again kick in this kind of survival sort of like lock you into this survival sort of mentality. But I think a lot of it has to do with community empowerment, right? Our communities able to sort of shape the world that they live in. Our communities able to sort of define what a good life looks like for them, right? And we know that when a lot of our parents and grandparents and family, they didn't have a lot of choices in defining what a good life meant for them, right? If they were working in the fields, they had to decide what a good life would look like in the context of all these constraints, right? So there's an element of community empowerment, which means having full participation in the decisions that are made around you, right? In government, in your workplace, you have a union where you can advocate for stability, for benefits, so that you don't have to be worrying about what you're going to do when you're old. If people are empowered in their community to shape up the world around them, I think that's kind of what changes culture, right? It's material conditions, it's participation, and yeah.
Yeah, and if I could add, I think it also sort of goes back to priorities, right? Perhaps for our community, it's more important to find a job or to do something that creates a profit than going to a city council meeting. You rather spend that time, I don't know, doing something, washing the neighbor's car and trying to get $5 or something, than going to the city council meeting, because that's on your set of priorities. It's the number one thing. It's providing for your family, and then and I guess that's also part of a cultural thing, because you haven't been exposed to proper education or had a good opportunity to go to school, or you haven't had the chance to actually think about or know about the actual benefits of being civically engaged in your community. It's a circle that it's not just having free healthcare for everyone. It's all these other conditions, all this other situation with schools, with job opportunities, with all these things that play a role that makes us who we are. Culturally, we're like a chingarle. Like you have to stay strong. There's no time to be sick. There's no time for a flu. You have to go out there and provide for your family, or look for something that creates an immediate benefit for yourself, an immediate benefit for your family. And then if you have a chance, or if you have the time, you perhaps will do another thing. You make a carne asada with your tias or something, and that's how our priorities could be. And that's something that that's how we've been shaped, I guess, or that at least that's how I've been shaped. And I've had these opportunities to think a little bit or know a little bit of how beneficial it truly is to be civically engaged in your community, to be participant on city council meetings, to be participant on board of supervisors meetings, state meetings, and how you as an individual play a key role on the decisions that are being made for your community. So again, it goes back to your priorities, to the opportunities you've been given, and everything, sort of, it's a puzzle that comes together and makes our community. It's not like you either add another piece or remove a piece and it's going to be a fix. Everything has to be complemented with each other to make a stronger community, to make a resilient community now with the COVID and all these other issues that have been, a cumulative impact on our communities. It's education, there's lack of resources, there's lack of opportunities, which, put us on a disadvantage. I mean, we're a disadvantaged community. So you have to be run twice as fast to catch up on somebody from, Northern California. You have to be, a step ahead in order for you just to catch up to that same level of opportunities.
You mentioned city council and city council meetings. Calexico is going through this phase of kind of I don't know. It's a weird situation right now in Calexico in terms of city council. But this November there's going to be 4 positions open. How can a lot of people don't really think about running for city council, even though anybody can really run. Do you feel that's, because people in Calexico always say it's always the same people. It's always the same people that are running. We just recycle them and they go in there. But yet we never see anybody that's, I guess like a blue collar person, somebody that's working out in the fields. Do you feel that it's because they don't feel like they would make a change, or is it they don't have the time to deal with these things? Or, would you encourage somebody that, is a field worker that, has to wake up at 5 a.m? Would you encourage somebody like that to apply for one of these positions?
Absolutely. But I think it's a tricky question about local politics, because cities are under a lot of structural constraints that sort of make it hard for one person to sort of change things, right? So there's been a turn in the last few decades towards empowering unelected advisors or managers. This has a lot to do with just the amount of debt that cities started to take on after the 80s, as cities started to, this federal government stopped giving cities a lot of money. So they had to take out a lot of loans, and this required a lot of sort of experts or sort of, you know, what are now kind of city managers to sort of like handle, be essentially financial advisors, right? But these people aren't elected. So it's I think any individual that comes in there, it's a hard thing to sort of to learn all these sort of technicalities that are not sort of, you know, the stuff of inspiring politics. But I think it's also hard for any one person to sort of take on these structural things. So more than an individual, I think you need candidates that are dedicated to community building, right? To say, I'm here for a group of people that I'm bringing with me, and that and that part of my job is to sort of make sure that they're always at the table, right? That I'm always engaging them, and that I'm growing that group of people that sort of don't just vote every few years, but that are, you know, that a movement candidate, right? So as important as where a candidate is coming from is how they see leadership, right? It's not, okay, thanks for the mandate, I'm just going to go lead now. It's, I'm going to bring these people with me, and we're going to lead together throughout my whole term, right?
Yeah. Do you want to add something, William?
Yeah, and you know, perhaps it might be that there's definitely a need for change at all different levels, right? There's always room for improvement. There is always you know, situations that could have been handled better, you know, after the fact. But also there's a need for having a representation, just as we have on the state with our assemblymen, that, you know, work for the community, that know where they come from, and have those priorities set to be you know, mindful of their community, to be mindful of who they represent, right? You know, these positions are available in this case for city council and Calexico, might not be something that's interested with the community, or you mentioned a farm worker. You know, there's all this Robert Rules of Order. You know, that's like the that particular parliamentary portion of every meeting. That's something that you have to take a, you know, an AP class in high school, and if that person went to high school and learn that process, or some type of college, just that particular piece that plays a key role at city council meetings with the voting and all of that, and got to put up a motion and things like that. That I personally just learned not too long ago, you know, like 5 years or so, and that's because, you know, this is where I got involved. But for a community member that, again, their priorities is providing for their family, that's something that has to be, you know, taught to them and encouraged for them, because you'll see leaders everywhere, you know, and I remember, you know, my grandpa, he used to be a musician. He was the leader for the family, and I guess that's pretty similar with our families, right? He didn't have any sort of political agendas or anything like that, but he knew a lot. And he was the person, like, if you didn't know something, you will go to him, and he will be the lead for the family. And he will be able to lead. He was actually one of the pioneers in Mexicali. He was able to lead the whole community, right? And without having this political background, he was the leader. He was the one that the community relied on, and he would represent the community, you know, with other communities, right? He will be the one that, this is sort of our area or jurisdiction, and this is how we represent. And that, again, going back to the parliamentary process or Robert's Rule or whatever that might be, Brown Act, and all of that play a role on this council meetings or committees, that particular part is something that our community is not really aware of or have a knowledge of. And us as an organization, we do see those inequalities of education, or that disadvantage of the knowledge that our community has. we do have at Comite, we have a youth program where we recruit students from local high schools. It's the Youth Environmental Health Internship. And we teach them all this stuff, they have to be a junior or senior in high school. And we tell them about, this parliamentary process. We tell them on how to write a letter to their assemblyman. We take them even to Sacramento and listen to be at the Capitol and listen to this committee meetings and how to find the agendas and things like that you don't really learn anywhere. You have to be sort of like learn on your own, or you have to be more involved and have somebody teach you on this. Because, as for me, school never taught me this. I pretty much learned it on my own. And with these students, what we're trying to do is just, build the leaders of the future, right? Perhaps they might go to San Diego or Los Angeles because there's not an educational opportunity for them to get a BA here locally. But, having that seed planted on, these are the inequalities in your community. This is what we need, stronger leaders like you to go out there with this knowledge and then bring it back to our community, right? And then, because you're going to be the next assemblyman, you're going to be the next governor. And that's the people that we need, that they are well aware of the necessities in our community. And I think that's perhaps it's not for me as to run on this on a political path, but to get the next generation on board, or next generation on how to address a city council member, how to address your assemblyman, and that he's just another human being, that he's there to represent you, and for them to just lose that sort of fear that government imposes on our community, or the lack of empathy that our community has on any governmental process. There has to be a slow and steady change with our community, and what we're doing as an organization is identify those leaders at the high school level that could be the leaders of the future.
You mentioned the young leaders of the future. Luis, do you feel that, like here in Calexico especially, do you think that there's a need for a younger generation to get involved in our politics, in local politics?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think that's always a good thing. I think it's a tricky thing because a lot of communities like the Valley sort of see people usually go to college and sort of take a windy road back. But I do think that fresh ideas, fresh language, fresh strategies, leadership can't be seen as like a goal in itself. You need to have a reason that you want it. Like I can't imagine why anyone would just want to like be in these meetings all day for. I think the youth will have visions of what the world can be, right? And it would be awesome to have them sort of see local elections as a way that one way that they can be pushing for that kind of future that they're going to inhabit.
Yeah, because I've been talking to friends because of all this thing that's been going on here in Calexico. I've been talking to friends that no longer live here, and they've been telling me like, oh, you should run, you should do this. I'm like, you know what? To be honest, like I feel that, like you mentioned earlier, like one person can't really change this. We gotta have a group of young people, that because we've kind of noticed that this old guard that's been running Calexico for a while now hasn't really stepped up to the plate. And I feel that no, I'm not trying to bash on anybody, but it's obvious that look at where we're at, and there's no leadership, and the people that are leading aren't doing a good job. And like I said earlier, like it seems like it's recycled people that are coming in and out. And yeah, like I do feel like it needs to be a group of younger people, young leaders that if they really want to make a change, they need to maybe run together and step up and bring in those fresh ideas and make a change in that. And yeah, like I'm hoping that, both of you guys that are involved with, young leaders in the Valley that, try to convince people to, make a change.
Yeah, and if I could share a story or an experience I've had, and it's the future or the younger generation are not just for politics, right? Not just for this city council or anything like that. Also, I wanted to share this experience I had with my niece. Her name is Valeria. She's a doctor now, and I had a conversation with her. I would say about a year and a half ago. She was gonna move to Texas. She was gonna do her internship over there. She went to school in Mexicali, medical school in Mexicali. She was soon to be a doctor, and she needed to move somewhere else and do the internship. And she wants to be a neurosurgeon.
Neurosurgeon.
Yeah, is that how? Neurosurgeon. Yeah. And she was telling me like, I'll go out there to Texas, and that's where that's the place to be for neurosurgeons. And my goal is be a doctor, be the best at it, best I can be, and help whoever I can and make good profit. That was her thought at that moment, at that particular time. That was a year and a half ago. It's worth to say that she was about 23 years old by that time, and she's still pretty young to be a doctor. Mm-hmm. And I told her and then she was gonna stay in Texas. That was her original plan. And I told her how many neurosurgeons does Mexicali have? And at the time she mentioned, there's only 2. Really? And there's 1.5 million people in Mexicali, and there's only 2 of them in Mexicali. And they're my teachers, this and that. Also, they're doctors, they're teachers, and they're spread so thin because there's only 2, right? And then I told her so do you want to go to where the money's at or where the need is at? Because you're a doctor, you should be, or on your mind should be where the need is, right? If Mexicali only has 2, why don't you become the 3rd, right? And I started to have this conversation about opportunities and how people lack of resources, lack of professionals like her, for her in the medical sector, that she had at that time the priority to move to Texas and try to make a good life for her, because that's how we pretty much that's our train of thought, or that's how we are sort of trained to think, right? That you go to school and then you make a good profit, then you get married, have a good life, but she never thought about actually staying there to be meaningful onto what she was doing, right? And then just all of this, she just clicked on her, you know what, that's true. What am I going out there to pursue the American dream or whatever and have this? And if there's so much need here in my community, and if I have this knowledge that I've been able to acquire here in the city and going into Texas and going back then I could see on her face, it clicked on her, yeah, this is what I want to do. And having just that simple conversation with her and be able to have her have a meaning into what she was doing, right? Have a purpose onto the profession she chose, the career she chose. And it's really, for me, it's really, gratifying to see that she's willing, that she came back. Actually, about a month ago, she came back, and she's gonna, with the COVID and everything, she's gonna hop into all this situation happening out there too. So, it's not just political. There's also other parts that need to be taken care of.
Yeah, exactly. Because when I spoke to Assemblymember Garcia, and that's one thing that he mentioned was that the need for us to get the young generation prepared and incite them to come back to the Valley, back to back home, and bring better jobs, do all these things that being a little bit more educated can entice, and because the reason he said that was because I asked him about, affordable living, how California is one of the, more expensive places to live in the States. And with this whole COVID thing, a lot of people, are saying like, oh yeah, we have these people coming from Mexicali and going to our hospitals. But, my thought in that is that, these people work here and they probably can't afford to live here in this side of the border because it's too expensive to live here. So they, what's the best thing to do is, go over there. So I asked them, how do we make housing a little bit more affordable? And he said his answer was, we bring better jobs to the valley. So,
yeah, I think that's been a major part of the economic development strategy in the Imperial Valley has been bringing low wage service jobs. And when I see that, I think it's such a Band-Aid. It's you're bringing large retailers that are usually, playing a part in the closing of local shops, but you're also, the jobs that you're producing are jobs that are where money is just leaving the valley, right? These when the outlets, these sorts of developments, that these are not companies that are going to invest that money here. The only money that's left behind is low wage service jobs that they pay to part-time employees without health insurance. This is an economic development, right? Economic development is like jobs that are fulfilling, where money gets recycled within our community, right? Where small businesses employ, are able to stay in business and are able to hire people, and those people buy in small businesses, and the money stays here and it grows, right? And so I totally agree with that a lot of the and I think this has to do with, this isn't just our community. This is a lot of Black and brown communities around the country. The main sources of what economic development looks in these places is low wage service jobs, and yeah. So I do think that there's a rethinking of what economic prosperity looks like in a way that is locally grounded. I think that is a part of what that requires.
What are some of the big reasons why committees or coalitions like yours are so important in our our local community, especially here in the valley, where we have families that are with really low incomes? Why is it so important to have these coalitions or committees?
I think it's important to have just community groups and coalition building, because that's how our communities are. That's how we get things done, right? And also culturally, we do things together, and that's how we solve our issues, and that's how we inform our community. There's different models of giving information to community, right? One of them that we strongly believe in is, the Universidad Popular. That's pretty much what our promotoras do, right? Like go out there, have direct conversations with our community, have bring un cafecito, una dona, and have a conversation, and talk about perhaps like the census, right? And you have that's the way you get together with our community. That's how you make our communities engaged, how you actually have a meaningful conversation with them, and that's where groups and local organizations and coalitions are able to make a difference, to start these conversations and have the community be more active within their community, right? Be involved in other processes. How can us as organizations be supportive of what the needs in the community are, and how the community can support organizations and coalitions like ours, right? Because that's our goal, right? Be a resource to our community, also be a vehicle for community to feel empowered, to feel that they have a voice and that they should be listened to. And for a community like Imperial County, for the Valley, it's it's really tough to see the importance of having a meaningful civic participation. It's really tough for a community to be to have that empathy into participating into governmental processes. I just mentioned the census. I personally, I run the census campaign for our organization. I'm one of the leads, and it's really one thing. It's having that conversation with the community that was not aware even that the census was happening, was not aware of what the census really means. And once you have this conversation, we're a bottle of water and just have a social distancing conversation. Like, you could go to this website, or if you receive it on your mail, and this is what it means for the future of your family. And then, it sort of just clicks on their mind too. Like, oh, I didn't know. And it's not because they're not willing to do it. It's just because they haven't heard the information, right? And once they hear it, you explain it in a way that makes sense for them, and be participant about it. Like, yeah, I'll do it right now. Can I do it on my phone? Yeah, you can do it right now. Boom, boom, boom. 5-10 minutes, they're done, and they know that they done. They're participant, or they're active in their community. Just that's just a single example, right, with the census. But you start engaging with all these conversations, and that's the job or organization wants to play at our community. Bring those resources, bring those opportunities, have those conversations with them, and also have conversations at a higher level, right? At the leadership with the government, who's involved, how we support local champions, how we support our governor, how we support all of those players that definitely have a meaningful incorporation of our community into their agendas too, right? It's not just them or other interests, but it's also the community's interest is part of their agenda, and that's where we play a role, sort of being like the in between, right? Like being able to engage the community and presenting these issues with our elected officials, with our city councils, with our our county supervisors, and sort of be the voice for them at times, right? And I think it's important for other generations to come to continuing this path. And if we were to live on a perfect world, we wouldn't need any of this. If we were to live where community opportunities were the same, there was no social injustice. There will be more equal opportunities for everyone. Then perhaps this organizations wouldn't have been needed. But fortunately, we live in a community that it's not like that. We're a disadvantaged community that needs all the help it can get, and if we can be of help for our community, we'll be there for them.
I could briefly add, I think a lot of the issues that we experience growing up in the county are at their root products of inequalities in power and in voice. We know who is at the tables, right? We know farmers are always at the table. We know large business groups are always at the table, right? So this is an inequality in who has voice and who has power in our community. And one of the roles of organizations and coalitions like ours, I think, is to make sure that table is bigger, to rectify the inequality of voice and of power that leads to a lot of the injustices that take the form of environmental injustice, economic injustice, the numerous ones. So there's a dimension of accountability, of an empowerment, of trying to make democracy work by bringing the large parts of our community that aren't at the table into the table.
Good. It's really, really, it's something that I hadn't thought about it, and it is true. And I'm glad that there are groups like yours that are doing this. We're a little bit over an hour now. Is there anything that you guys would like to add that we didn't talk about?
I guess just because this is Que Pasa Calexico, I just wanted to say that I don't know, I grew up in the Price Center, which now isn't there, but that it was, it was just such a special like example of what small businesses like kind of, there used to be a lot more of this in the county. It was so multicultural. Like I met people from all over the world there that were selling all sorts of things. I would run around and sort of, play with the different people that sort of, the kids that were, I think there is a version of locally grounded businesses that are community, that build communities that we have around the valley and that we've had, and that I think we should foster.
Yeah, and actually, I was thinking about when Luis mentioned about making the table bigger and have other players in there. I was actually thinking of those that own business in Las Palmas. It just crossed my mind, like, are they even part of all these committees that are making decisions for the local economy? Like, of course not, and they are part of the local economy. They're part of the local workforce. And I guess it ties with the Price Center that used to have business and now they're long gone. But it's really important that there is a fair opportunities for everyone to have a seat on these tables, right? It doesn't matter if you're the owner of this huge company or corporation, or if you're an owner at Las Palmas, or because you're also the contributor to the economy, and you should be given a fair seat on that table. So that's a fight that I'm willing to fight for. That I want to make our community whole, make our community be strong together, and bring those opportunities that our world deserve and long overdue for our communities.
Yeah. Well, guys, thank you for coming on. I want to, I know for sure this is not our last conversation. I want to have you guys on again. And the reason is because a good way for me, the way I get information is through podcasting. And I feel that, that should be a good way that our valley, should also get information. And I really hope that, with this conversation, the other conversations I've had in the past, that more and more people in the valley get, into listening to podcasts. And I don't want to say just mine, but, that's my goal. My goal is to inform. My goal is to have people like you that are helping out our community. My goal is to have candidates, if it's election season, just to inform everybody about, what's going on in our community. And, I always tell everybody that comes on here that, they're welcome back. They're welcome back to share any information that will help out our community. And, I know you guys are, Luis and your coalition has already started, but Comite Civico has been here for a while now. And, I've seen, some of the stuff you guys do. But I'm one of those people that I'm not really, I'm busier at home and I don't really go out to meetings and stuff like that. But I do try to watch when they're live on Facebook. I know Gil Revelar is sometimes does Facebook lives when there's you guys had the meetings over at the mall with the air quality stuff. Mm-hmm. So I try to be involved in different ways that I can, but I feel that this is one of the ways that I can contribute to my community. But at the same time, I feel that we need to get more people to listen in. And I'm not the only podcaster here in the Valley. There's more. And there's, different topics, but, for me, it's more about informing the community or putting the spotlight on people who are doing positive things in our community. So yeah, I really encourage people to listen, and I encourage people like you to come back and share what the things you're doing, the things that you're promoting, and the ways you're here helping out our community. So, yeah, like I said, you guys are more than welcome back anytime you want. Just reach out to me or I'll reach out to you. And, thank you once again for taking this time. And I really appreciate everything that you guys are doing out there.
Thank you for the invitation. It was nice.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. And I'll gladly take another invitation and be part of your podcast again.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right, guys. Don't hang up. I'm just going to stop the recording. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure you share this. And make sure you guys follow these guys on social media. Comite Civico Comite Civico del Valle and Imperial Valley Equity and Justice Coalition. Make sure you guys follow them and share their information. I know a lot of our community could really, take advantage of the things that they're doing for our community. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening, and stay safe. Wash your hands, wear a face mask, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.